The harsh beep of the emergency alert woke Captain Elaine Warner from her light sleep. She blinked twice, adjusting to the bright red warning lights flashing across her quarters on the U.S. Defiant. "Captain, to the bridge," the calm voice of the ship's AI said. "Priority 1 message from Earth Command." Elaine pulled on her uniform quickly and ran her fingers through her short blonde hair. Within minutes, she stood on the bridge, facing the serious expressions of her night crew. "Show me," she ordered. The main screen lit up with the face of Admiral Frank Dixon, his eyes heavy with worry. "Captain Warner, our deep space sensors have detected a large fleet entering the solar system. They're not responding to any of our hails. The Defiant is the only ship with the speed and weapons to intercept before they reach Mars' defense perimeter." Elaine nodded, her mind already working through battle scenarios. "We're on our way, Admiral. Coordinates received." After the transmission ended, she called the entire senior crew to the bridge. Within minutes, Tactical Officer John Miller arrived, his usual smile replaced by determination. Chief Engineer Susan Brooks followed, already checking ship systems on her tablet. Science Officer Alan Garcia came last, eyes wide with curiosity about the unknown ships. "Ladies and gentlemen," Elaine said, "we have first contact, and it doesn't look friendly. The Defiant will intercept in 3 hours. I need all systems at full capacity." The crew moved with purpose. The Defiant was humanity's newest warship, built after decades of peaceful exploration. Many had questioned why Earth needed such powerful weapons. Today, they would have their answer. As the Defiant approached the coordinates, Alan's voice broke the tense silence. "Captain, I'm detecting 23 ships of various sizes. One is massive, at least 5 times our size." On the view screen, the alien fleet appeared. Their ships were dark, with strange purple energy flowing across their hulls like veins. The largest vessel sat in the center, shaped like a massive arrowhead, with 3 prongs extending from its rear. "Open a channel," Elaine ordered. "All frequencies." Communications Officer Lisa Patel nodded. "Channel open, broadcasting universal greeting." For several long minutes, nothing happened. Then the screen changed, showing a humanoid figure with pale blue skin and eyes that reflected light like a cat's. Behind him, other figures moved in perfect unison, as if sharing one mind. "I am High Admiral Vrax of the Spectre Empire," the figure said in perfect English. "Your world has been selected for integration. Surrender your ship and prepare your planet for our arrival." Elaine stood taller. "This is Captain Elaine Warner of the United Earth Ship Defiant. We welcome peaceful contact, but we do not surrender to demands. Perhaps we can discuss." "There is nothing to discuss," Vrax interrupted. 17 civilizations have joined our collective. Yours will be the 18th. Resistance has proven ineffective." John whispered from his tactical station. "Captain, they're charging weapons." Elaine tried again. "Admiral Vrax, we have no quarrel with you. Let us establish diplomatic." The transmission cut off as the massive alien flagship fired. A purple beam struck the Defiant, making the entire ship shake violently. "Shields down to 40% from a single hit," Susan yelled from engineering. "Return fire," Elaine ordered, gripping her chair as another blast rocked the ship. The Defiant's main guns fired, but the energy seemed to disappear into the alien ship without effect. "No damage to their flagship," John reported, his voice tight. "But our sensors got good readings on their technology." Another hit caused a console to explode. A young officer screamed as he was thrown across the bridge. "We can't take another hit like that," Susan warned, her hands moving quickly over her station. "Shield harmonics are failing completely." Elaine made a quick decision. "Plot a course through that asteroid field. Maximum speed." As the helmsman complied, Elaine looked at the alien fleet one more time. What they lacked in diplomacy, they made up for in firepower. But the Defiant had escaped, carrying vital information. And in 3 hours, when their systems were repaired, the hunters would become the hunted. The game had just begun. The asteroid field provided good cover, but the Defiant was badly hurt. Emergency lights cast a red glow across the bridge as Captain Warner moved from station to station, checking on her crew. 3 dead, 7 injured, the medical officer reported quietly. Elaine closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of those losses. Then she straightened her back and turned to her officers. Status report. Susan Brooks wiped sweat from her forehead as she studied the engineering displays. Main power at 38%. Shields basically useless until we rebuild the emitter arrays. Weapons still online, but they didn't seem to do much good anyway. They certainly didn't, Alan Garcia said, looking up from his science station. I've been analyzing the sensor data we collected. Their hull simply absorbed our energy weapons. John Miller, his face lit by his tactical display, added, and their weapons cut through our shields like they weren't even there. The mood on the bridge darkened. The Defiant was humanity's best ship, and it had been swatted aside like a toy. Options? Elaine asked. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Susan's eyes widened as she looked at a particular reading. Wait a minute, she said, tapping rapidly on her console. Look at the quantum signature of their weapon impacts. She sent the data to the main screen. Most of the crew saw only confusing patterns, but Alan immediately leaned forward. That's unusual, he said. Their weapons operate on a shifting phase variance. Susan nodded excitedly. Yes, and our experimental shield harmonics might be able to adapt to that. We can't match their power, but we might be able to deflect it. For the first time since the attack, hope flickered on the bridge. How long? Elaine asked. 4 hours, maybe 5, Susan replied. But Captain, even if this works, we're still outgunned. We should return to Earth and bring this information. Elaine shook her head firmly. If we do that, we'll lead them straight to Earth. Remember, we're faster than they are. Earth needs time to prepare. From the communications station, Lieutenant Kevin Boyd raised his hand. The young officer rarely spoke unless he had something important to say. Captain, I've been listening to their transmissions since we escaped, he said. I can't understand the language yet, but there's something strange about the pattern. He played an audio file. The bridge filled with odd clicking sounds and musical tones. It's too perfect, Kevin explained. No pauses, no overlap like normal conversation. It's like they're all thinking the same thing at the same time. Alan finished. A hive mind. Kevin nodded. If we could break into that communication, we might learn their plans, maybe even disrupt their coordination. Elaine looked around the bridge, seeing the determination in her crew's faces. They were hurt but not defeated. Susan, get those shield modifications started. Ellen, help Kevin with those communications. John, I want to know if those alien ships have any weak points at all. As her crew jumped to work, Elaine moved to the viewport. Somewhere beyond the asteroids, the Spectre fleet was searching for them. Going back to Earth was not an option. It would only bring death sooner. Meanwhile, on Earth, Defense Director Patricia Nelson stood in the Global Command Center, staring at the latest report. The Defiant has gone silent. An aide informed her. Patricia looked at the star map, showing the last known position of humanity's most advanced ship. Captain Warner is still out there, she said firmly. And if anyone can find a way to fight these aliens, it's her. Prepare all planetary defenses. We need to buy the Defiant time. Back on the Defiant, Susan's hands moved quickly as she reconfigured shield emitters. Beside her, a junior engineer looked worried. Do you really think this will work? He asked quietly. Susan gave him a determined smile. It has to work. We're not just fighting for ourselves now. In her quarters, Captain Warner recorded a message for Earth, detailing everything they had learned. She didn't know if they would survive to deliver it in person, but she would make sure the Defiant went down fighting. And thanks to Susan's discovery, they now had a fighting chance. Spectre scout ship approaching our position, John Miller announced, his voice tight as he monitored the tactical display. They'll be in sensor range of this asteroid cluster in 3 minutes. Captain Warner stood from her chair, surveying the bridge. The past 16 hours had been filled with non-stop repairs and modifications. Her crew was exhausted, but there was a new energy in the air, the energy of hope. "Status of shield modifications?" she asked. Susan Brooks looked up from her engineering station, dark circles under her eyes. "As ready as they'll ever be, Captain. We've tuned the harmonics to match the phase variance of their weapons, but it's just a theory. We won't know until they hit us." Elaine nodded. "And the quantum torpedoes? Modified as well," John replied. "If Alan's calculations are correct, they should pass right through the Spectre shields." It was a big if. Everything they were about to try was based on theories and guesswork. But they had no choice. "Battle stations," Elaine ordered. "This is our test run." Red alert klaxons sounded throughout the ship. Crew members rushed to their positions, faces grim but determined. "The scout ship is scanning the asteroid field systematically," Alan reported from the science station. "They'll find us in about 90 seconds. Elaine settled into her command chair. "Let's not make them search. Take us out. Full impulse. Target their weapons systems only." The helmsman's fingers danced across his controls. The Defiant pulled away from its hiding place, engines glowing as it accelerated toward the much smaller Spectre scout ship. On the view screen, the alien vessel came into view. Unlike the massive flagship they had encountered earlier, this ship was sleek and fast-looking, with the same strange purple energy flowing across its hull. "They've spotted us," John said. "They're charging weapons." "Hold course," Elaine ordered, gripping the armrests of her chair. "Let them fire first." Seconds ticked by. Then a brilliant purple beam lanced out from the scout ship, striking the Defiant head-on. The ship shuddered, but nothing exploded. No consoles sparked. The lights didn't even flicker. Shields holding at 92%. Susan shouted, disbelief and joy in her voice. It worked. "The scout is transmitting to the main fleet," Kevin called out from communications. "They sound confused." Elaine allowed herself a small smile. "They're not the only ones surprised. Fire quantum torpedoes, Mr. Miller." 2 glowing blue projectiles shot from the Defiant, streaking through space toward the Spectre vessel. The scout ship tried to evade, but the torpedoes tracked perfectly. When they struck, there was no explosion at first. They simply disappeared into the hull. Then, a second later, the scout ship erupted from within, breaking apart in a spectacular display of purple and blue energy. A cheer went up across the bridge. Their first victory against the seemingly invincible enemy. But Susan's voice cut through the celebration. "Captain, the shield modifications are already degrading. The phase variance is shifting. We'll only get 1, maybe 2 more encounters before they adapt." And John added soberly, "Engine stress from that maneuver was higher than expected. We've got microfractures in the warp nacelles." The victory was real, but limited. They had proven the Spectres could be hurt, but at a cost. Kevin's voice pulled everyone's attention. "Captain, I've partially decoded their transmission before we destroyed them. There's something you need to hear." He played the translated audio. A cold, emotionless voice spoke. "Human vessel located. Defenses unexpected. Main Armada arrival at Sol system in 72 hours. Silence fell across the bridge. 3 days, Ellen whispered. "Earth has 3 days." Kevin raised his hand hesitantly. "There's more, Captain." In the transmission, they kept referencing something called Nexus, some kind of planet or base. It seems important to them. Elaine stared at the debris of the Spectre ship floating on the view screen. A decision weighed on her. They could rush back to Earth with their new shield technology and weapons modifications, but would that be enough against an entire armada? Or they could follow this new lead to Nexus, hoping to find something more powerful to use against the Empire. "Set course for the coordinates of this Nexus," she ordered finally. "Maximum safe speed." As the Defiant changed direction, moving deeper into unknown space rather than toward home. Elaine could only hope she was making the right choice. The planet Nexus hung in space like a broken jewel. Once beautiful, now scarred with massive craters and dark patches where cities had been destroyed. The Defiant approached cautiously, sensors at maximum range. No signs of Spectre ships in the system, Alan reported from the science station. But I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the surface. And life signs. Captain Morner leaned forward. Life signs. I thought the Spectres destroyed everything in their path. These readings are different from Spectre biology, Alan explained. And they're concentrated in underground structures. Survivors, maybe. Elaine considered their options. They had less than 3 days before the Spectre Armada reached Earth. Every hour was precious. We need answers, she decided. John, Susan, Alan, you're with me. We'll take a shuttle down. Kevin, keep monitoring Spectre communications. If anything approaches, take the Defiant to the far side of the moon and wait. 30 minutes later, her shuttle landed in what once had been a massive city. Now, only broken buildings and twisted metal remained. The away team moved carefully through the ruins, weapons ready. Over there, Susan whispered, pointing to a partially collapsed structure. Something moved. Before they could investigate, figures emerged from hidden doorways all around them. Humanoid but clearly alien, with pale skin that seemed to shimmer and large, completely black eyes. They carried makeshift weapons and wore patched-together armor. Don't shoot, Elaine ordered her team, slowly raising her empty hands. We come in peace. One of the aliens stepped forward. Unlike the others, his armor looked more advanced, though still worn and repaired many times. Peace, he said in a surprisingly clear voice. An interesting concept from someone wearing a military uniform. I'm Captain Elaine Warner of the Earth ship Defiant, she replied. And you are? I am Kel, the alien said, last commander of the Free Arcanian Forces, though forces is generous for what remains of us. He studied them with those unsettling black eyes. You are not Spectre puppets. How did you find Nexus? We intercepted Spectre communications, John explained. This place seemed important to them. Kale made a sound like bitter laughter. Important. Yes. This is where it all began. The first world they conquered. Come with me. If you truly oppose the Spectres, you should see what we've discovered. The team followed Kel through hidden passages that led deep underground. They emerged into a vast cavern filled with other Arcanians working on equipment and weapons. Children played in one corner while elders sat together, their skin much paler than the others. We've been fighting them for over a century, Kale explained. The Arcanian people were once billions strong across 12 worlds. Now we are fewer than 10,000, all here on our ruined homeworld. He led them to a laboratory area where several Arcanians worked over strange glowing equipment. The Spectre Empire isn't just conquering worlds, Kel continued. They're harvesting minds. Their hive consciousness grows with each species they absorb. And it all started here, with technology our ancestors created. He gestured to a large device in the center of the lab. This was once a peaceful tool for sharing knowledge. The Spectres corrupted it, turning it into the heart of their hive mind network. Susan moved closer, examining the technology with fascination. You've been studying their communication system. More than studying, Kel replied. We've been developing a virus that could disrupt it, break their connection to each other. Without their hive mind, they become disorganized, vulnerable. But we've never had a way to deploy it at the source. Alan looked up from his scanner. The source. The Hive Nexus, Kale said grimly. Their central command station. All Spectre ships connect to it. But it's their most heavily guarded location. Elaine felt a spark of hope. If we could deploy your virus there, it would cripple their entire empire, Kale finished. But it's impossible to reach. Before Elaine could respond, alarms sounded throughout the underground base. An Arcanian rushed in, panic clear on his face. Spectre patrol ships have entered the atmosphere, he reported. They found us. Cale turned to Elaine, desperate determination in his eyes. Now you have a choice, Captain. Run and save yourselves, or stand with us against a common enemy. Elaine didn't hesitate. Susan, help the Arcanians with their virus. John, Alan with me. Let's show these specters what happens when they corner their prey. Above ground, the first Spectre ships were already landing. The Defiant hung silently in space, its lights dimmed to avoid detection. Through the view screen, the crew stared at an impossible sight. The Hive Nexus. The massive space station orbited a dying star, its twisted shape resembling a dark crown with hundreds of spines extending outward. Around it, Spectre warships moved in perfect formation, like worker bees protecting their queen. I count over 200 ships, John said quietly from his tactical station, including 3 dreadnoughts the size of the one that attacked us. Captain Warner studied the display, her face grim. The battle on Nexus had been hard. They had lost 2 crew members and several Arcanians had died. But they had beaten back the patrol ships and escaped with something precious: the completed virus and the coordinates to this place. Cale stood beside her on the bridge, his alien features showing clear distress at the sight of so many enemy vessels. The virus must be uploaded directly into their central hub, he explained. Nothing else will work. Susan looked up from her console. Based on what we learned from the Arcanians, I think we can modify our ship's energy signature to mimic a Spectre vessel. At least enough to get us closer. Even if that works, we'd need to dock with the station, John pointed out. How do we do that without raising alarms? From the pilot's seat, Lieutenant Nicole Carter spoke up. The young woman was usually quiet, but her flying skills had saved them repeatedly during the escape from Nexus. Their patrol ships follow predictable patterns, she said. If we could copy one exactly, including speed and approach vector, we might be able to slip into one of the maintenance bays. Kevin nodded from communications. I've analyzed their identification protocols. They're complex, but if they question us, I think I can send the right response codes. Elaine looked around at her crew. The plan was dangerous, possibly suicidal, but they were out of time and options. Earth had less than 24 hours before the Spectre Armada arrived. Let's do it, she decided. Susan, John, get the ship ready. Nicole, plot the approach. Kevin, make sure those response codes are perfect. Hours later, the Defiant moved slowly toward the massive station, its hull now glowing with the same purple energy as the Spectre ships. Nicole's hands moved with delicate precision over the controls, matching the exact speed and pattern of returning patrol vessels. Incoming transmission, Kevin reported, tension clear in his voice. They're asking for identification. He sent the prepared response code. Long seconds passed. They've cleared us, he finally said, relief washing over his face. They're directing us to Maintenance Bay 12. Nicole guided the ship carefully into the designated bay. As the docking clamps engaged, Captain Warner stood. Susan, Alan, John, you'll come with me and Cale to plant the virus. Nicole and Kevin, stay with the ship. Be ready for a quick escape. The team moved silently through the station's corridors, using Arcanian technology to avoid detection. The interior of the Hive Nexus was unlike anything they had seen. Organic-looking structures pulsed with energy, and strange sounds echoed through the halls. It feels alive, Susan whispered. In a way, it is, Cale replied grimly. Built from the combined consciousness of conquered species. They reached a massive central chamber. In the middle stood a towering column of swirling energy, pulsing with millions of tiny lights. The central hub, Cale explained. Each light represents a linked Spectre ship or base. As John began setting up the virus delivery system, Alan scanned the room with growing horror on his face. Captain, he said, his voice shaking. I'm detecting neural patterns. Billions of them. These aren't just communication links. They're minds. Stored minds of conquered species. The team stared at the column. What they had thought was just flowing energy was actually a stream of consciousness, billions of captured minds linked together into the Spectre collective. "This is how they grow their empire," Cale said, hatred in his voice. "They don't just conquer us. They consume us." Susan looked sick. "And Earth would be next." "Not if we succeed," Elaine said firmly. "How much longer, John?" "Almost ready," he replied, connecting the final components. "Once we activate this, we'll have about 10 minutes before the system detects the intrusion." Elaine nodded. "Then let's." Alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. A voice echoed in an alien language. "They've detected us," Cale shouted. Someone must have scanned the Defiant. The mission had just become a race against time. "Keep working," Captain Warner shouted over the blaring alarms. She drew her weapon and moved to the chamber entrance. "We finished the mission." John's fingers flew across the virus delivery system. "Just need 2 more minutes." Metallic footsteps echoed down the corridor. Elaine and Cale took positions on either side of the doorway as Susan joined John to help with the final connections. "Remember," Cale warned, "aim for their center mass. Their control systems are there." The first Spectre guards appeared, tall, armored figures with glowing purple lines across their bodies. They moved with eerie coordination, weapons raised. Elaine and Cale fired together. The first wave of guards fell, but more appeared behind them. The narrow doorway became their advantage, creating a bottleneck that prevented the Spectres from overwhelming them with numbers. "It's done," John called. "Virus uploading now." On a small screen, they could see a progress bar slowly filling. The virus was entering the system. A blast hit the wall near Elaine's head. She ducked, returning fire. "How long until it takes effect?" "Minutes at least," Cale replied, shooting another guard. "We need to get back to your ship." Susan looked at her scanner. "The fastest route is cut off. We'll need to go through the lower levels." As the upload completed, they retreated through a secondary exit, sealing the door behind them. Alan led the way, following his device through dark corridors that seemed to pulse with an unnatural life. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew louder. The Spectres were rallying, and some were starting to move erratically, the first sign that the virus was causing chaos in their hive communication. "Captain to Defiant," Elaine called into her communicator. "Carter, we need extraction. We're heading to docking Bay 14. It's the closest to our position." Nichols' voice came back, tense but controlled. "Understood, Captain. Moving to Bay 14 now. But there's activity everywhere. They're scrambling ships." The team ran through the twisting corridors, fighting when they had to. During one exchange, a Spectre blast caught John in the leg. He stumbled but kept moving as Elaine and Susan helped him along. Throughout the station, systems began to flicker and fail. The lights dimmed, then brightened to blinding levels before dimming again. Spectres they encountered moved with less coordination, some even fighting each other in confusion. "It's working," Cale said, a grim smile on his alien face. "The virus is breaking their connection." They finally reached docking Bay 14, but found it guarded by a squad of Spectres. These guards moved with purpose. They hadn't yet been affected by the virus. "We can't go back," Susan whispered. "And we can't fight through all of them." Elaine looked around desperately. Then she saw it, a maintenance panel. "Alan, can you get into the bay's control systems through that?" The science officer nodded, moving quickly to the panel. As he worked, they heard the Defiant's engines approaching outside. "Almost there," Alan said, sweat beading on his forehead. Suddenly, the bay doors opened. The surprise caused the Spectre guards to turn, and the team seized the moment, rushing forward and firing. In the confusion, they made it to the edge of the platform just as the Defiant appeared, its landing ramp extended. Nickel had positioned the ship perfectly, but they still had to jump across a gap to reach the ramp. One by one they leaped, John making it across despite his injured leg. Elaine was last, turning to provide covering fire as the others boarded. "Captain, come on," Susan shouted from the ramp. Elaine jumped just as a Spectre blast hit the platform where she'd been standing. She landed hard on the ramp, and Susan pulled her inside as the door closed behind them. "Get us out of here, Nicole," Elaine ordered as she stumbled to the bridge. The Defiant pulled away from the station, engines straining. On the main view screen, they watched the Hive Nexus begin to convulse, sections of it going dark, while others glowed with dangerous intensity. "The virus didn't just disrupt their communications," Susan said, staring at her readings. "It's causing a chain reaction in their power systems. The whole station is becoming unstable." As the Defiant accelerated away, Susan's eyes widened. "Captain, the reactor core is going critical. If it explodes, the shockwave will destroy everything nearby, including us." "Maximum speed, Nicole," Elaine ordered. "Can we outrun it?" The young pilot shook her head. "Not with standard engines. They were damaged during the approach." Elaine looked at Susan. "What about the experimental quantum drive?" "It's never been tested at full power," Susan warned. "It could tear the ship apart." Around them, the Spectre fleet was falling into disarray, ships colliding as their coordinated movements broke down. "Quantum drive engaged," Susan shouted as her hands flew across the engineering console. The Defiant shuddered violently. Outside the viewports, space itself seemed to bend and twist. Behind them, the Hive Nexus exploded in a blinding flash of purple and white energy. The shockwave expanded outward, destroying nearby Spectre ships instantly. Just as the wave was about to reach them, the Defiant vanished into a swirling tunnel of blue light. Inside the ship, systems sparked and failed. Crew members were thrown from their stations. Captain Warner held onto her chair, knuckles white, as the ship shook around her. "Hull integrity failing," John called over the noise. "We can't maintain this speed." "Hold on," Susan yelled back. "Just a few more seconds." With a final violent lurch, the Defiant burst back into normal space. Through the view screen, the familiar rings of Saturn filled their view. "We made it back to the solar system," Alan said in disbelief. The quantum jump worked, but their relief was short-lived. Warning lights flashed across every console. The ship drifted, most systems offline. "Power reserves at 8%, Susan reported grimly. "Life support is holding, but that's about it." Elaine looked around at her battered crew. "At least we're home. We destroyed their command center. The Spectre threat is—" "Captain," Kevin interrupted, his face pale as he stared at his console. "I'm picking up Spectre signals. They're already here." Ellen rushed to his station. "Confirmed. Multiple Spectre ships in Earth orbit, including the Doomsweeper flagship." On the main screen, they watched as several Spectre ships moved through space near Earth. Their movements were different now, less coordinated, but still dangerous. One ship fired on an Earth defense satellite, destroying it easily. "How?" Susan asked. "The Hive Nexus is gone. These ships must have been too far away to be affected by the explosion," John reasoned. "They've lost their connection to the hive mind, but they're still functioning independently." Cale nodded grimly. "Without the collective, they'll be driven by base programming. Conquer and destroy." Elaine stared at the screen, watching her homeworld under attack. Earth's defense fleet was engaging the Spectres, but they were outmatched by the alien technology. "We can't fight them conventionally," she said quietly. Then her eyes lit with determination. "But we still have a weapon. The virus," Susan realized. "If we could get it directly into the Doomsweeper systems." "How?" John asked. "We can barely move, let alone fight." Elaine stood up straight. "We don't fight. We surrender." Everyone stared at her. "The Doomsweeper will want to capture us. Study how we destroyed their command center. If they bring us aboard using their tractor beam, we could deploy the virus directly into their flagship," Kevin finished, understanding dawning on his face. Elaine nodded. "Susan, John, Can you modify the virus to transmit to all the remaining Spectre ships at once? It's possible, Susan said. We'd need to use the Defiance communication array. But yes. Then that's our plan. Send a message to Earth Defense. Tell them to hold on. Help is coming. Hours later, the nearly powerless Defiant drifted toward the massive Doomsweeper. As expected, the Spectre flagship locked onto them with a tractor beam, pulling them into a massive docking bay. Remember, Elaine told her skeleton crew. Once aboard, we split up. Susan and Kevin, prepare the virus transmission. John, Alan, and I will head for their command center to create a distraction. The tractor beam brought them inside the alien ship. Spectre guards surrounded the Defiant, weapons ready. Now, Elaine whispered. They burst from different hatches of the ship, catching the guards by surprise. The team split up as planned, running through the corridors of the massive flagship. Alarms sounded throughout the ship as Elaine, John, and Alan fought their way toward the command center. Though their movements were no longer perfectly coordinated, the Spectre guards were still deadly opponents. Finally, they'd reached the bridge. The doors slid open to reveal a large chamber where High Admiral Vrax waited, his pale blue skin and reflective eyes showing no emotion. Captain Warner, he said in that same perfect English they had heard at their first meeting, your resistance is impressive, but ultimately meaningless. As Vrax spoke, Elaine saw Susan's signal flash on her communicator. The virus was ready. You're wrong, Elaine told the Spectre Admiral. Your empire ends today. Vrax tilted his head. The Spectre Empire has existed for 10,000 years. We have consumed entire galaxies. Your single ship cannot. Now, Elaine shouted into her communicator. Throughout the Doomsweeper, systems began to fail. Lights flickered. On nearby screens, Elaine could see other Spectre ships suddenly losing power and drifting out of formation. What have you done? Vrax demanded, his perfect composure finally breaking. We set them free, Elaine answered as Earth's defense fleet, led by Director Nelson, seized the opportunity to attack the disoriented enemy vessels. The Defiant crew escaped the failing flagship moments before it exploded. As they watched from a safe distance, the remaining Spectre ships were destroyed one by one. The age of the Spectre Empire was over. And across the galaxy, countless enslaved minds were finally free.